Hello everyone, welcome to your next section. In this one we are going to teach you how to install everything that you need to deal with the rest of this class. So we're going to install some dependencies and then I'm going to show you a couple things around them, just give you a little bit of a guided tour of the things that you've installed, alright? So in this class you're going to install Python 3.6 onto your computer if it's not there already. You're going to download something called Anaconda and we're going to get you a coding text editor onto your computer as well. All of these things are they're all free and they're all cheap. Your computer should be able to run them no problem. Once we download all this stuff, I'm going to show you how to access Python on command line on a Mac machine or a Mac computer. But the process is basically the same for a Windows machine. There's slightly different commands, but you're just going to go to a command prompt instead of a terminal and boot up Python. That's all you're going to do. And then lastly, I'm going to try and show you a couple of resources that you can get for help with coding problems as you do them on the internet. I'm going to show you something called Stack Overflow, as well as the official Python documentation, where to find that and how to look at it. So in terms of definitions, what is Python? We're going to use at least Python 3.4 as an object-oriented programming language. It's considered kind of one of the more easier high-level languages to learn. It's a fairly fast language. However, other coding languages tend to be faster. They're a lot more complicated though, like C, much faster language, but also takes a lot more to code it. Another interesting thing about Python is it's an indented language, meaning it has a completely different syntax and structure than many other languages. This is good and bad because some people prefer the style that they're used to, and it's good in some ways because it does force a degree of syntax and typesetting for people. So there's pros and cons to it. Some people love it, some people hate it, but those are some features of Python. The next thing we're going to download is something called Anaconda. Anaconda is a package manager and almost like a VM virtual machine builder for Python. What it allows you to do is kind of run, prototype, and render Python code in a browser. It's not connected to the internet, but it is running on a browser so that you can visualize stuff and play around with your code, and it's quite easy and nice to use. It's nice. Using Anaconda is nice when you're giving presentations with coding or you're prototyping something, but once you start to actually do some hardcore analysis, having it render through a browser makes it a lot slower. So it's really nice for prototyping and like sharing some things with people, but it's not good for your hardcore analysis. And how Anaconda does that is it uses something called a Jupyter notebook. It renders your code and all the everything that's being processed through Jupyter Notebook. And lastly, we're going to deal with a code editor, Python, and a lot of other languages you use. You do something called scripting, and basically a code editor is just like a text editor, except it's designed to highlight certain functions and language, certain like commands and variables within your coding language. It also will help try and find errors in your code. It's basically just like a word processor designed specifically for coding. Okay guys, this isn't like really a syntax section, but I'm going to go through how to download and install all this stuff for you, and then we'll do a recap, okay? So first off, here we are with Anaconda. So if you go to anaconda.com, it's really easy to download, guys. So you just go into downloads, find what operating system you're on, Windows, Mac, or Linux. Make sure you're using the Python 3.7 version and download that, okay? When you download this, it'll be just like downloading any other like thing you downloaded on the internet, okay? And it'll give you a nice install thing. And once you have installed it all the way through, you're going to come to something that kind of looks like this, okay? And basically this is the package manager and the navigator for it. When we want to make a Jupyter notebook, you can go ahead and click this and you'll see what I mean by running in a browser. But we're not going to play with this until a couple chapters in, okay guys? You can also look here, which tells you where like all your what Python packages have been installed for your system, okay? That's basically what Anaconda is. It's very useful for prototyping and building code in Python, especially if you're a beginner. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is a text editor. I'm recommending here to you Sublime Text 3. There are a bunch of other text editors. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to show you this one here. It's free. It's been free for a long time. and use your operating system. Like download the operating system of your choice, and what a Sublime text editor will look like is something like this. This is with real Python code. I've made it black and white so you can like see it personally, but you can change all the color schemes and stuff if you want from within. And you'll notice how, oh yeah, colors here, and it gives a bunch of other information. So that's what this is what Sublime Text looks like, at least the way I've built it so that you can see it easier on a screen. Last thing you want to look at is downloading Python. Just go python.org/downloads, and here you are. Feel free to download Python 3.7. I'm using 3.6.5 right now, but it doesn't really matter. You'll be fine on 3.7. Be sure to download it on your operating system of choice, okay? And once that's downloaded, the next thing I want to show you how to do is how to get to a command prompt or terminal. If you're on a Mac, you want to go to your your magnifying glass here and type in terminal. Oops, not terminal. Terminal, and run that, and it'll bring you to a terminal screen. If you're on Windows, look for command prompt in your search menu. And basically, you're going to get something that looks kind of like this. It'll look slightly different if you're on a Windows machine, but it kind of looks like that stuff on The Matrix if you've ever seen that movie. And when we want to access, this is kind of like being in your operating system from a text-based, in like a text-based format. If I go into my Finder here, basically what we're looking at when we're in that terminal is almost like a window like this, that we're like navigating around our file folders, but from a text-based system. So in order to get into Python natively, all we have to do after everything is installed is type Python. One thing you'll want to try, guys, if this doesn't work for you, is restart your computer after you've downloaded everything. But you'll notice here that I'm in Python 3.6.5. I'm in Python. I know I'm in Python as well because this little command prompt here is telling me that there are 3 chevrons, and this is the symbol for I'm in Python, and this computer is waiting for commands from me. So it's saying, I'm listening, give me some Python to do a thing with, okay? You'll also notice that Anaconda is showing up here as installed, and that this is Python, guys, right here. We're not going to do any Python commands, but I do want to show you one thing, which is called the help menu in Python. So if you go into help, it brings you into the help utility for Python, and you can start to navigate all the different keywords, functions, anything you want to with that has to do with Python. So for instance, if I want to talk about numbers, I'm going to go look at the integer command here, and it's going to pull up a bunch of stuff about integers. And I'm pressing up and down to read about integers in Python, and when I'm done, I can press Q. Okay, and then once I'm done with the help menu, I press Control D, and it breaks me out, leaving into our Python, our regular Python interpreter. We can also do something called exit, I believe, to get out of the help menu. But that help menu will be really good for learning what you can do with certain Python elements once you start to have those kind of questions. So that's getting into Python, guys. It's all you need to do to get into a Python terminal. The last thing I want to show you are 2 excellent resources. One is called Stack Overflow, overflow.com. So whenever I have a coding question, I tend to go to Stack Overflow. In fact, I'll even go like, how do I convert an integer into a string Python stack? I even just write that, and usually it's the first hit that will show me a Stack Overflow answer. And what you see here, Stack Overflow is almost like a board for people to ask coding questions, and then people can try to answer them, and they get a reputation for it. So I asked the question, converting an integer to a string in Python. This person is trying to do it, but it doesn't seem to work. And here a person has given the answer to it. So Stack Overflow is a really good resource. You'll see people with other answers. You'll also see other related questions. Stack Overflow is an excellent resource. Next thing I want to show you is Python official documentation. This is another excellent, important resource for you to learn how to use Python. So if you ever have any questions, please do look at the official Python documentation stuff. It'll tell you from like specific functions to modules to anything you need to know. Okay, guys. So with that, let's do a recap. I showed you where to install Sublime Text, Python, and Anaconda. I showed you how to navigate through basic Python, just like how to get to the help menu, what to look for when you're getting into Python, and a couple of different resources regarding where to find answers when you start to get into that. So with that, guys, next class I'm going to navigate Python a little bit more for you, teach you a little bit about how to deal with that stuff, and then we're going to call that chapter. So thank you very much, and see you then.